Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it. Hey, folks, welcome back to the For Better and Worth podcast.
Yes, we're so glad that you have continued to tune in, and we are glad that you're here today.
So, I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka.
So, we are your hosts of this show, and today we've got more scrum-delicious content for you.
Are you saying that because you just ate and that's just top of mind or something? Like, that isn't even a word, husband.
It may not be, and I'm feeling good right now. So, but we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about some of the work that this lovely lady has put out, and because for all of you that didn't know, this is the anniversary of when Ericka wrote her first book.
Yes.
Yes. Applause. Go crazy.
6 years ago, I put it out into the world, and that was a triumph, labor of love, literally a baby that I birthed, and super excited to celebrate that with our listeners and, just give you a little bit of context of why I wrote it and what I hope to accomplish in being able to reach more people through that work.
Man, I remember when you wrote that book, and I felt vulnerable then because we were putting our life out there. And look at us now. We are doing a whole podcast and just continuing to give you guys snippets of our life together and our experiences. And we hope that by listening, you are taking some valuable lessons from this. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. And Ericka, I'm just really curious, and I want you to help anyone out there listening really know what made you write this book in the first place?
Well, at that time, I had been in the coaching world for about 11 years, going on 12 years. And I really wanted something to hand to people that was more substantial than a business card. I wanted to be able to, put my thoughts and ideas and all of that down. And somebody said to me, you've already probably got all of the content you need for a book. And I knew I had a book in me, but I really didn't know what was entailed in writing that book. And the truth is, I was vulnerable, just like you. It was the first time I was going to share some of the stories that might have been challenging to share, and just being open and honest and transparent. And I even asked you, I remember asking you, is it okay if I write this? Is it okay if I share this with the world? Do you have anything that you just want us to hold to our heart a little bit closer? And I'm thankful that we worked through that as a team in terms of the concepts that I wanted to share, and still feel that it was authentic to our truth and our story and the message that I wanted to get out there. So, I wrote it so that I can reach more people, and that's the truth. And I've been able to, on stages, sell the book as well as have it on Amazon. So I'm just, really thankful that I pushed through, because that was not an easy time.
Look, I'm glad you wrote the book, and we're talking about a book, but we haven't even told you the name of the book.
Oh my gosh, we didn't.
Right.
Oh my gosh, and this is the juiciest part, husband.
Look, so that book is called Naked and Unashamed. 10 money conversations every couple should have.
Yes.
And that's right. You got to own your nakedness. You got to be willing to just get out there and be who you are, be who you called to be. But I love that you were motivated to write that book and share insights that you've gleaned not only from your years of coaching, individuals, but also from our years of, as a loving married couple. And all those things that we've been able to learn from one another as we've, traveled this road of life together. So
yeah, and I want to share why I titled it the way that I did, because I think that it took a while for me to land on that title. Like, that was actually a big part of the process is figuring out what the title would be. And it didn't even happen until after the book was written and I was still toying with ideas for the name. But the truth is that naked requires vulnerability. It requires taking off the stuff that has been holding you back or covering up and shielding from other people knowing. And so I wanted to, just walk right on into the vulnerability that can be present when we're talking about money. And then also in that nakedness, in that vulnerable place, being unashamed, right? We can do stupid things with money. We can be really out here wild and have regrets about the things that we have done with our money and how we've navigated life in that space. And the truth is that we can learn from everything. Like every mistake doesn't have to be something that defines who you are. And so let's be unashamed about it. Like honestly, I don't hesitate to tell people that we were $90,000 in debt and that we did stupid many times over, or, we have regrets of our own. And so it's okay. We're human and we're not perfect. And so that naked and unashamed is also a nod to the Bible because it is a faith-based work. And just that Adam and Eve were naked in the garden and they were not ashamed of what they saw in each other in that space. And so I want people to have that same, boldness that we have. We get into bed with this person, you might as well share your money stuff, right?
Look, we know that there are two things in any relationship or marriage that can complicate things. And one is sex and two is money.
Woo, come on
And
now.
so if we're talking about being naked and unashamed and having conversations, I think that's a good book to start with, and that's a good book to work through. And so I just love the fact that there's work out there because, we want to see people win.
Yeah.
We want to see people win in relationships, and we want to see people win with money. And that was our big motivator to just even step out here and start this podcast and just week in, week out, put the work in because people, we care about you. We see the comments, we hear the input, and look, we're in the lab trying to make sure we give you and we deliver what it is that you need. Not only that, just what you want, but what you need. Because sometimes, if you only get what you want, you don't get the nutritious things that you need to grow.
Yes, I like to make good broccoli. It tastes good and it's good for you. And that's what this is all about. We want both.
Right. Broccoli has that good fiber too. So, but part of that whole conversation is really about working as a team.
Yeah.
And as we begin to talk about, relationships and those things, that's what we all have to remember. This is a team sport. We have to work together. And part of that is we have money meetings monthly and, we talk about, what we're going to be doing, what's working. And I think those are things that you have to be willing to get into and start working through. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about that. So, Ericka, I just want to ask you a question. So we say a team couple or working as a team. I want you to explain to me what a team couple looks like.
Yeah. I think first of all, team couple means in and of itself, like you're thinking of a sport, you're doing something together. You are in the same space. You're working towards a common goal, right? That's really what a team does. There's no I. We're not all by ourselves. Somebody is with you. And so in this couple relationship, when we're talking about money, we have to remember that it's not you versus me, right? It's us together working towards a goal. And so we have to put the we back into the equation. And so we're trying to see, where do we have common ground? What do we agree upon? What do we need to work on? Who is doing what? We're asking lots of questions and just trying to uncover where we work best and how we can thrive together. And so we're not independent thinkers. We're not, and you have your moments where you're not necessarily doing everything together. And honestly, for us, like most of the time, like 90% of the time, since I'm the nerd, most of the time I am doing the budget, but we come together and discuss it together before we spend money, before we get out here and make any decisions. We actually come together and make sure that we're collaborating, that we're finalizing, making changes together. But the work behind the scenes to like present that data and all of that might be done by one person. But as long as you have, you know, settled that together as a team, that you know who's doing what and you're defining the roles, I think that that is vitally important to do ahead of time.
You know, you said something that I caught in there, and I kind of keyed in on it, and I was like, okay, well, you said we're not independent thinkers. And I think what you're talking about is that we're aligned in our goal and we're on the same team. Now, we can each have our own point of view and our own perspectives. And I think as you guys listen out there and you think about your own relationships and you think about how you're working through things, that's where you have to make sure you're setting the table and we're sitting at the table and we're having this conversation and discussion together. Because it's not like we're getting in cars and we're driving in separate locations like, hey, you go do what you want to do and I'm going to go do what I want to do. It's, hey, we're on this journey called life. We're on this journey called, money conversations and building net worth, and you're doing it together.
Yeah, and I think to clue in on that and piggyback off of what you just said is everybody wants to know that their voice is heard. Like, that is important. We're smart people. We're savvy people. We all bring something important to the table, and we want that respected and we want that valued in our relationships. The thing with, maybe we should specify, how about that? Independent actions of what the couple has decided is the goal, right? Where are we trying to go together? And if somebody is sabotaging that because they are doing something independent of the goal that they haven't like agreed that that is the direction that is okay to do, then that's, if we're going to sabotage the budget because we're like, I'm not doing this, that is not helping you be a team couple. It's actually taking away from your ability to pour into these love bangs, to make sure that somebody is going to hear you next time. We just want to make sure that you're setting a table and that when you come to the table, we're all clear that we have a voice and we have something of value to bring.
I love that you say that because whenever we get Amazon packages or packages from some other place, I'll be like, hey, we didn't talk about this. This wasn't in the budget.
That's that miscellaneous money, husband. That's that miscellaneous money.
But you always are like, look, I got this on sale, or I did this, or you've already thought it through because, I'm like, a detective. I'm like, look, I've been researching and I've been checking and I found some things, some irregularities. But I love the fact that, you've already thought it through. You've already made, a provision for it in our budget.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big things that people have to remember is that when we sit down, because nobody wants to say, hey, you put your fingers together and you say, all right, we are going to be having a budget meeting.
Oh, gosh, no.
I will need you to be here at, 3:30.
Absolutely not.
And we are going to pull the spreadsheets out.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And we're going to discuss the budget. That sounds terrible.
Listen, as in the words of one of our daughters, she would say, you just lost me.
Right. And so we have decided that, before the month begins, we connect and we say, okay, let's review what's happening this month. Mm-hmm. We've got all our standard things on the budget, all the regular expenses. But then, life comes up, things happen that aren't planned on a monthly basis. And then we say, okay, what's extra this month? Mm-hmm. Or what's happening? And then, I'll peruse, I'll look at the budget. But okay, what's up with this? Or what's going on here? And that's when I think we kind of negotiate too.
Yeah.
We're like, well, we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. Or if we do more of that, then we have to do less of this. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we want it all to balance out. And so those are just some of the things that you got to make sure that you're doing.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is make sure that it's still in alignment with the big picture goals, right? So are we still reaching our big picture goals? Are you still saving money for this thing? Are you still putting money towards debt reduction? And how is it in the big picture going to affect how quickly you get to those eventual goals? And so we don't want to make all of these compromises or changes or adjustments and then find out, oh no, we have just erased, the ability to get out of debt 6 months, sooner. Like that's not what we're saying. But I think, making sure that you come together and you are okay with the changes that are made is really, really important. And some of these money meetings are not literally the budget. It might be something else. And I think that's what is different about the actual book is that there are 10 money conversations every couple must have. And sure, there's probably a plethora. Let's just say there are probably hundreds, but I've put them in some buckets. And sometimes those money meetings are not really about the dollars and cents. They might not have numbers associated with the actual conversation. You might be talking about things from your past so that you can understand one another better. You might be talking about your future so that you can dream about what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And so some of these conversations are theoretical or they are historical or they're just educational for you both. And it helps you to connect. Like the key, in being a team is that you're walking in one accord, you're connecting, you're aligned. Are you perfect? Nope. Do you say the same thing all the time? Absolutely not. Do you always have to agree? That is not going to happen, but you have some guidelines for how you can approach many different types of conversations. And so that is what is really important for me is to make sure that there is a foundation that people can follow in that way.
So, as you were talking, I think about, and I'm gonna get into some of the specifics around, how you think you should approach some, money meetings. But when I think about money meetings, I almost take that image that I'm sure everybody out there has seen, where there's a jar and you've got a bunch of big rocks and little rocks and sand and water and all that you got to try and fit into one jar. And that really is a budget. But what do? You can't just go put all the sand in, then the water, and then try and fit the rocks and pebbles in. You really have to take those big rocks, put all of those in first, then add the pebbles, then add the sand because the sand gets all in the cracks and crevices and all those spots. Then add water on top of that.
Yeah.
So now you've taken care of the big things. You've added, many of the things that are smaller with those, smaller rocks or pebbles. And then you've, covered those areas that you may not have thought about by adding that sand in there. And then you compact it all together and you add water. So whenever I think about a budget, that's what I think about, is making the things that matter the most fit in first and then working around that.
Yeah.
And so now when we talk about money meetings, you guys are probably out there like, man, you guys are money meetings and this.
We're not this strict, okay? Like it's
Right.
I mean, we've loosened the belt a little bit over the years, but I think it's important that you take it seriously. Like literally take it seriously. We're killing it in the workplace. Professionals out here. We're taking, copious notes, at work. Come on, let's take our finances just as seriously, right?
Look, we've told you, week in, week out, progress over perfection. None of this is going to be perfect. I don't expect you to follow a system to the T, but I expect you to be hungry and make a decision and get some drive and some determination that you're going to accomplish your goal. And that goal could be to get out of debt. That goal could be to save more. That goal could be, to set financial mile markers for yourself. My expectation is that, you get busy doing something, get busy making it happen, because we want to see more and more people out there create generational wealth, create, a level of freedom for yourself so that you can live the life that all of you want to live. So let's talk about this money meeting. How would you tell couples that are listening how they should approach a money meeting?
I think first of all, let's not be stuffy. Take all, just like you described the money meeting that you don't want to have. First of all, I would say if there is a nerd and a free spirit in the relationship, I think it might be a cool idea to let the free spirit drive maybe the time, right? So, how much time are we going to spend? When are we going to do it? Here's why, because you want buy in. You want to make certain that there is buy in from the person who's probably the reluctant spouse to begin with. I was the reluctant spouse in the very beginning, believe it or not. Chris had to take away my credit cards from me. He was the one who was listening to people on the radio, trying to figure out what to do with the finances. And he brought that to me. And then I dived right on in once I realized how valuable this kind of change in our financial life could be. And so maybe invite the free spirit. Figure out who is who. Is there a nerd? Is there a free spirit? Hopefully we can tap into making sure that there's not two free spirits who are unwilling to do any of the work, right, where it concerns the money meetings. But I think you need to have an appropriate time where you're both wide awake. There needs to be something about the meeting that is enjoyable. Maybe you have some coffee, maybe you got some tea, maybe you put on some mood music. And the other thing about any type of money conversation is we do not want this to be a 3-hour money summit. We do not want this.
Oh my God. If it's 3 hours, your boy is out.
Right. And I'm gonna be out. I'm the nerd here, and I'm not interested in sitting anywhere for 3 hours talking about money. And so, I think that it's fair to say that 15 to 20 minutes to start, have a topic, and clue in on that. Maybe it's just a simple question, honey. What do you think about this? Honey, what do you understand to be true about, this? What do you want? What do you envision? How do you see us doing this? What role do you want to play? What are you good at? Like, there's tons of questions that you can ask each other, but I think you also need to have a limit. Make sure that you have a quiet space or an interesting space where you can connect, and then make it routine. Oh my gosh, please make it routine. Don't have a money meeting and then 3 months later say, oh gosh, we haven't talked about the money in 3 months, right? Let's figure out when we're going to connect again. And typically in our house, it has always been where it's before we spend any money around the payday. So, before the month begins, we have a game plan for the month. And so to be very transparent about what the needs are for the upcoming month, and then also making sure that there's at least a check-in midstream, especially if you get paid twice a month, or if people get paid 4 times a month, like every week. Make sure that your money meetings are weekly. Literally, it would be great to connect for 15 minutes once a week if that's the case.
Look, when I think about the money meetings, I think about somebody serving as a project manager. Mm-hmm. Because somebody's going to be like, okay, well, let me back up. Project manager is good, but, I'm really a headlines guy.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's like, give me the major headlines. I don't need the forensic accountant to show up and say, we're going to go line by line.
I used to do that.
Detail by detail. And I was like, no, we're going to get these headlines, make sure I get the important points and the factors that matter most before I begin to check out.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, to define what your headline is for the meeting. What is that one major rock that needs to go into the jar, like you mentioned? Because if you take care of the big rock, then all the other things will fall into place after it. So how much money are you putting towards debt? The kids have this event that we have to pay for. We've got this travel coming up, and how are we going to fit these things in? How much money is going into savings? Things like that. Like, what is the big thing you're trying to accomplish? And make sure that that gets addressed, if nothing else gets addressed, so that your biggest rocks are going into that bucket first.
Look, I think about how we have had these meetings in the past, and, we have definitely gotten to a point where they are easier now.
Mm-hmm. It should be. It's been 24 years, husband.
Yeah, because we talk a lot about, different things throughout the day, and, by the time we get to the money meeting, we've already probably had some conversation around the extra things, the things that are, additional this month. Mm-hmm. And so when we get to the money meeting, I was like, oh, yeah, we talked about that. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead, move forward with that. And here's what I will say. If you are the accountant, do not try to seize sole control of the money meeting because all you're going to do is upset your partner.
Yes, we're not trying to do that.
Because they'll be like, look, hold on now. You are not the boss of me. Stop trying to tell me what to do. Because that's why we talked about it's a team sport, folks.
Right.
We're on the same team.
Yeah. One band, one sound.
Exactly. And we're not even going to get into the fact that if somebody makes more money than the other, and, you know, look, I make more money. This is my money.
That is a future episode, okay?
I can do what I want with my money.
Listen, we are going to table that for 60 minutes in the future, husband, okay? But that is a very important point, is that we have to remember that it both parties are chief financial officers in this relationship. Both parties have equal say. Both parties are necessary. Whatever role you bring to the table, whatever it is that you're good at, whatever it is the mantra that is important to you, it one needs to be heard and also respected. And there is no person in the relationship, especially in where the money is concerned, that is more important than the other.
Look, I know people I work with, and we talk about, you know, responsibilities. I always say, you know, when it comes to my career and things like that, I'm Chris Young. I'm the CEO of Young Incorporated, and we share. My wife is the CTO because, you know, let's be honest, she keeps me on track. She takes care of a lot of the technical aspects of, you know, where we need to be.
That's
you know,
right.
Manages the calendar, because don't ask me where we're going, because I don't know.
That's true.
You know, she manages a lot of that. But then I also say that we share the role of CFO. You know, so we have our, you know, our responsibilities and things that we do. But then the same thing when it comes to her career. She's, you know, the CEO of her career and makes those decisions, and I help. But then we share the role of the CFO. So it's not one person controlling the meeting. It is a two-way conversation.
Yes.
And that's what people have to remember. Relationships, man, it's cliche to talk about communication, but boy, if you aren't communicating and you aren't, you know, voicing what your concerns are, what your cares are, what your likes and dislikes are, and what your wants and needs are, then there's going to be some problems.
And you know what? I have in the past, when I was coaching people, I have told them, I think your money and your time is better spent getting marital counsel. Because if you can't, I am not trying to disrupt an already volatile situation. So if I sense that there is more to this story that needs to be unpacked, I will push them in that direction, because I am not about to tear down a house trying to work on money when their bigger issue might be something else in their relationship. And so I think that that's an internal gauge, right, that you have to really understand that part of this process, it's going to disrupt some things. It's going to unearth some things. It's going to go deep for some people when you're talking about money. There's a lot of baggage that we carry around our finances. And when that, you know, volcano begins to erupt, you might need some help, and it's okay to go get it.
Look, the good book said, don't be ye unequally yoked. So you need to make sure you get somebody with like mind.
Yes. If you're dating, hello, let's talk about this. Let's make sure that some of these money meetings happen before you put a ring on it, okay?
Look, I'm not mad about it. You know, we've talked about it, and we told you guys we did premarital counseling before I proposed. So
that's right.
I had to make sure.
Right. And I think we didn't even know that was going to be an amazing thing for us. I think that God worked that thing out for us. Okay.
Well, that's because hindsight, you know, people say hindsight is 20/20. I say it's 100/100.
Right.
Because when you look back, it's crystal clear when you know after you've seen the outcome. So it's 100/100 for us because it worked out.
Yes.
And now I'm a firm believer in going that route, because that route certainly can give you insights and understandings to know if you are like-minded, if you're on the same page. Because if you're starting out and the way you fundamentally do things, is that different?
Ooh,
I'm just gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you all.
please do.
It's not gonna change.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's a key point. We do not want you to think you can get into this relationship and change a human. We are not in that business. So talk about these things ahead of time. Understand, what you might need to work on. And this is why counsel is so important. This is why we think that that is a valuable part of your journey together in a relationship, no matter what part of the journey you're in. There is no shame in the counseling game.
Now,
Okay.
don't get me wrong. I do think there can be compromise because compromise can move you from your position closer to the middle or closer to the other person's position. We're not talking about compromise. We're talking about just fundamental differences in how you approach things.
Yeah.
That's where it can really become a problem. So these money meetings, these conversations are essential. And so I think there's a couple things that, we're building on, talking about being a team, talking about having money meetings, because when you have a goal, you have to plan. And you have to plan if you're going to accomplish that goal, because we all know if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
Yep.
So I got another question for you, Ericka. So what would be the main takeaway that readers will gain from this book of yours?
You can be successful in speaking with your partner about money. It is possible. Take it in bite-sized chunks. You have the tools. This book is broken down in 3 sections. So we talk about your money past, your money present, and your money's future potential. And in each of those sections, there are chapters with questions at the end of each chapter, points of reflection for yourself, and then points of conversation with your partner. And then you get a chance to figure out how you move forward as a team. And so it is possible to have a healthy conversation around money, and it doesn't always have to start with the numbers. The book doesn't start with the numbers. It's not until a third of the way into the book do we actually really start talking about your own personal numbers. And so I really want people to understand that you can have a solid, healthy, happy relationship, and you can also discuss money matters, which is, kind of like this podcast. You can have both. It's okay to have both, right?
I like that I like that it's 10 conversations, because it's like, you're taking 10% at a time
Yeah, there you go.
and you build upon it. And then you go to the next 10%. Then you're halfway there. You got through 5 of the conversations. You got 50% of it accomplished. And then you keep going, and eventually you get all 10 conversations accomplished, and you've accomplished 100% of it. And like Ericka said, there's more conversations that are going to come, but this is a very good place to start.
Yeah, I think the practice and the routine and the discipline, the commitment that you make to each other and to your money will blossom as you go through that, as you, slow down enough to listen to one another and how you're unique and how you're perfect for one another, although your journeys may not have been perfect before getting there. So I think that we've got to just respect all pieces of the journey and respect the experiences that we've each had, and make sure that we are, taking away what we can and bringing to the table what we need to. So I got a question for you, husband. I'm curious, what are some of the concepts? Like, I've been a coach now for a long time, and I'm just curious on living with me. What's the good, the bad, or what have you learned, in terms of some concepts around coaching or around what I have, done in this work with this book or with clients? I just want to hear your perspective on some of that.
I think some of your coaching is, testing ground with me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You have said sometimes where you're like, I don't need to be coached right
I
now.
was like, stop trying to coach me. I don't need no coach. But no, on a serious note, I think, knowing the work, knowing how we started our journey, how we started together, and we were on the same page from the get-go. Now, like I said, keeping it 100, we still butt heads about things, and, I don't think we argue. We just have some intense discussions sometimes.
Intense fellowship.
Right. But you know what? At the end of the day, I love you, and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just, knowing that you have been able to impact, so many families and relationships and couples, I feel like we've got to prove things out. I want to give you examples that have worked for our lives that you can share with other people. And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast. And so I will look at those conversations and, they're like very, I'm aware of what they look like. I approach the money meetings with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
If I know, see, all right, I got to take a little side journey
Uh-oh.
because I will admit I get a little sneaky, because I like to, squeeze things in and, I like to buy something.
Oh,
And
is this confessional now?
I'm just, I'm just trying to be true to myself, true to the people, and just let them know that, yeah, I sometimes will deviate, and you'd be like, well, hold on, what are you buying? I'd be like, no, don't worry about it. It's all good. Because, I tap into my little
slush fund.
my,
Chris
my
has to
little
have a
money,
slush
my little
fund,
money
okay?
reserves. I'm like, it's all good. That's
He's got his money to the side that we have agreed upon on how much it is a month because he likes to have his cash stash.
look, but just so you all know, I just put it aside. I don't spend it.
And then all of a sudden he's got $1,000 and he about to go buy something. I'm like, where are you getting this money?
I'm like, girl, stay out of my business. I know what I'm doing. This was in the budget for 5 months. I've just been holding on. But I have to prepare her for that sometimes because she doesn't know that I haven't spent my little, slush fund money. But we put that in the budget every month because I have a need to just have cash on me or just have cash available. And, if it's something that, needs to be done, we could put it in the budget, but I just like having a little money on the side, go on my sock, be like, I got $1,000 I've been holding on to my sock.
And you know what? I think that's fair game. I'll be honest with you. I feel like sometimes people need to have that autonomy of their own cash. They don't want to feel like they got to answer to you about a 7-Eleven run. You know what I mean? Or, they want to
Wait, hold on. Is 7-Eleven still in business?
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's just, come on now. I don't know. Who knows if it's still we know that a lot of people want to have autonomy over a set number of dollars for themselves. And I think that it's important that you agree upon what that number is. We also, one of the things that we agreed upon, and I remember asking you for this because I needed boundaries. I was starting to get a little free with some spending. And I said, babe, let's talk about a healthy boundary around this category because I feel out of control. Like I had to hold myself accountable. And we talked about it. We talk about what number it is that we will not go above, in our spending, the amount of money without talking to one another. Right. And so that's an important practice. And so when you look at those types of things and how that shows up in the way that you do life every 30 days, every month, then it just makes it a little bit easier to flow because you've made some agreements ahead of time on some of those things. And I just think that is, it's super helpful. I think that's really a good practice that people can put into place.
So here at the For Better and Worth podcast, we always talk about, is it worth it? We're going to switch it up for you a little bit today. We're going to talk about make it worth it.
That's right.
And when we say make it worth the time to invest, to have conversations, and to make sure, one, you're on the same team.
Yeah.
And two, to have those money meetings to discuss those big rocks, those little pebbles, all those things that fit neatly into the cracks and crevices. So you have to make it worth the effort to align with your partner, to ensure that from an overall goal perspective, that you're doing the things that are taking you in the direction that you jointly have agreed to go in.
Yeah. And I would add that it's always worth it to your relationship to put in the effort and the energy and the time required to have a money conversation that will benefit you. And so nearly half of Americans have money fights, with their partner. And the thing is we want to reduce those by giving you strategies to make sure that you are on the same page, definitely in the same book. And, the book you can start off with is Naked and Unashamed 10 Money Conversations Every Couple Must Have. And that's on Amazon, guys. So if you want to go get you a copy and start that conversation with your spouse, make sure that you go pick up a copy and let us know. Let us know how that worked out for you.
Look, go out there, grab a copy of Naked and Unashamed.
It's year 6. So exciting.
Look, make sure you guys keep tuning in, keep pressing play, because we keep pressing record. And so we want to make sure that you continue to join us here at the For Better and Worth podcast. And until next time, we're your hosts. I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka.
And we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.